Edith's life has been marked by difficult seasons.
I started sinking into a depression, and I didn't know what it was. I would withdraw. I didn't like bathing at that period of time. I didn't eat. I cried a lot.
Her path in ministry has seen her grow, but also challenged her resolve.
I carry the gift of leadership. I carry the gifts of music. And so it's so easy for me to rise into some of these platforms. But when your character is fluctuating, it makes you not be as steadfast and as firm as you should be. And that's something that I struggled with.
In the recent past, she went through a season of isolation that threatened to dim her shine.
I related to someone who was the complete opposite of the will of God in my life. I got bruised and hurt in a way that words couldn't tell.
It was a season that saw a friendship blossom as Edith fought to stand again.
She would come to my house and we would spend nights, sometimes crying, So she helped me cry. Yeah. And we'd pray. We'd pray, we'd cry.
To tell Edith's story, we made the trip to her native home in Gekambura, Kikuyu. The renowned gospel singer reflects on a difficult childhood that informs her perspective in life to this day.
I grew up with a single mom, and that's because she was married and she was in an abusive marriage. She tells me both emotionally, verbally, and eventually it became physical. So they parted ways when it actually became physical. I only have one side of the story, so I normally prefer not to talk about it. I grew up in Gekambura. That's where we are today. Though I had been born in Mombasa, where both my mom and dad were living, but upon the separation, my mom came back home. So this is our home. This is her mother's home, and this is where I grew up.
As Edith was looking forward to joining high school, there was a financial challenge considering her mom worked odd jobs to make ends meet.
She needed help, but there's nobody to help her. And I managed to go to high school because my first school fees was paid by a grandmother of mine, not her mother, but her auntie, a cousin to her mother. And she only paid one term. And so within the first term, my mom needed to figure out where money is gonna come from for the second term. So it was then that she took one of the animals that she had, a cow, a young cow, and she sold it. But it wasn't taken very lightly. So she ended up being chased out of her home here. And when she went, because she had nowhere to go, it was at a period in time when the whole family had risen up against her and against us for a period of time. And so she ended up being a street family. And she ended up sleeping on the streets.
While on the streets, they were taken in by a good Samaritan and sheltered in a makeshift hut. This new reality would take a toll on Edith.
I didn't think God was unfair, but I was tempted to hate my family because I felt they were unfair. And so what that did is that at some point in my high school, I went back to bedwetting for a huge part of my high school. On this other side, I found myself in an environment where I wasn't really used to that. I was used to having my own space, in as much as, yeah, my mom wasn't like affluent or anything, but just my space. I'd grown up from the village, and then all of a sudden in a place where we are bathing in a toilet and we are sharing small space. We're struggling, because when you're in the village, it's really easy to get potatoes, whatever in the garden. But now there's none of that. Whatever you eat, you have to earn blood and sweat, and it changed me a lot.
Throughout her high school, Edith had this overarching desire to belong, as she never felt at home to this point in her life.
I couldn't figure out if I was rich or poor. I couldn't figure out if I was supposed to be a scientist or an art person. I mean, look, I wanted to do art, but I ended up doing science. I came from a family that wasn't too poor, but my mother had always struggled, and right now is living in a slum. I came from a background where stability in family was not something I ever had, because my mom was a single mom, and as such, she never got married again. She raised me up on her own. And in terms of spiritually, we went through so much that there was a season in our lives when, we really went to many churches. It was difficult finding a church where we could just settle in. So yeah, all this instability in my life, I didn't really have friends because I was never in one place long enough to have friends. If it's church, we are moving. If it's areas, we are moving. If it's home, there was none. To this day, there's never been a total 100% reconciliation between me and my family. We are good. There was a lot of reconciliation that happened. There was a lot of healing that happened. But even in family meetings, you will easily see that I pull myself aside. And even when we are talking, I'll be there, but I won't have much to say. Because they're going to be like, you remember in this year, and this and this and this happened. But I missed all those years.
As all this was happening, Edith pushed her mum to reach out to her father to help improve their state of life. But this was met with rejection.
She gave in to a teenager and she looked for my dad's number. And I tried to call him, and I did call him when I was in high school, and we would talk. I would borrow the phone from the lady who was operating the canteen, and we would talk with him, and I would tell him, you should come see me, I'm in this and this school, it's a prestigious school, but we are struggling, and blah, blah, blah. But he ignored me. Yeah, I mean, we would talk nicely. He would, he would talk to me nicely, but do nothing about it. And so eventually I just got tired. I realized, this is going nowhere. Yeah, so whereas he had, kind of, given up on me a long time ago when I was a child, and I had that from stories, I think this was a one-on-one experience where now I felt like he rejected me a second time, and I just decided I was okay.
Joining Campus came with this renewed strength to develop a close relationship with God, but notwithstanding challenges.
I joined CU, and I did everything according to the books, right? But I kind of feel like the instability I was going through in my life affected my spiritual life to a big deal. There's a very big portion of my life which I feel was unstable. And even in CU, I tend to, be open about it and say that I went back to and from Christ. I wasn't as steadfast as I should have been. I wasn't as straightforward as I should have been. And remember, this is a person who carries the grace of charisma. I carry the gift of leadership. I carry the gifts of music. And so it's so easy for me to rise into some of these platforms. But when your character is fluctuating, between, you're oscillating, it makes you not be as steadfast and as firm as you should be. And that's something that I struggled with even while through campus. I would say that I remained in Christ, but I probably did not live the life that I should have lived as steadfastly as I should have.
Edith would later do well in campus and get employed in the corporate world. At this point in her life is where her music career begins.
I went to studio and I did my first song. And I didn't know much. So I went to the studio, which, there was somebody who had met with in campus. He was my friend and lecturer there, and he was the one who produced for me my first song, because he had since moved from being a lecturer now to being a producer. His name is Dominic Heimber, and he produced for me my first song. And we put it on YouTube as a lyrics video, because I couldn't afford this other video. I come from a place where, yes, I was in corporate, but I had so many responsibilities. I came into the workplace when, I became a breadwinner instantly and taken care of. By this time, the reconciliation with my family had happened. So partially, I was taking care of my mom. I was also taking care of my grandma. I was taking care of myself. I'm trying to build myself, and there's the music. So there was a lot going on. And after producing the first song, I put a lyrics video on YouTube. Well, it did very well, very, very well. It had like almost 2,000 views. Can you imagine? That was good, right? Yeah. And that was back in 2016. But then after that, I never did music since, because I got overwhelmed by what I was doing in corporate.
A new opportunity in the corporate world presented itself, and even though she aced through the different stages of the interviewing process, failure at the end would see her go through a difficult season.
I failed in April of 2018. So in May, I started sinking into a depression, and I didn't know what it was. I would just, I would withdraw. I didn't like bathing at that period of time. I didn't eat. I cried a lot. There was all manner of signs, but we never knew what this was. And even my mother had never seen anybody go through depression, so we didn't know what that was. But it ended up being, diagnosed as depression. And we only got to know about it because I also, I felt sick, and I got H. pylori. And H. pylori is painful. So when I was taken to hospital, that's when the medics also were able to tell that this girl is also depressed because of her stalking and all that. And by God's grace, and with the help of counselors, my mother being one of them, because my mom also started counseling me, started speaking to me, because she was advised, you need to talk to her, you need to bring her back to sanity. And by God's grace, I pulled through out of that.
Part of her recovery process was going to high schools doing missions, and in due time, her love for music was back.
Music is the one thing that makes me feel alive. It brings me back joy, because I was in a period of time when I wasn't very competitive, like in corporate, especially because of what I'd gone through. So I was feeling like, no, I'm not ready to go back to recruiters and to people who are gonna, subject me to, a system that's gonna make me feel less. So I wanna do what I am comfortable in, what I know I excel in. So I said, I wanna do music. I called a friend of mine and I told him, I want a manager. And he said, Edith, do you know what a manager is? I said, I don't know, I don't care. I just want a manager because I know I have a talent and I know it can go somewhere, but I don't know where to begin. So I need somebody who can hold my hand. Eventually, he ended up connecting me with somebody called Faki Liwali. And Faki is an amazing man. He's Muslim, but he ended up being the first person to believe in my music. And he is the person who ended up paying for the video that is on my YouTube called Overcome.
Edith later parted ways with her manager, and as the COVID-19 pandemic hit, she would do musical covers of different songs together with fellow worshippers, but this came with backlash.
When I began it, at some point there was an uproar of, these children who sing people's songs and write on people's, brands and all that. And that was such a big fracas around that. But then again, I have always found wisdom in being quiet, being still, and waiting for the wave to pass while I pray about it. Although it left me hurt, because in my mind, I said, Lord, would you give me my own songs in this language? Because I'd never known how to write Kikuyu music. I knew rock. Tell me to write a rock song. I'll write it in a jiffy. So I told God, Lord, would you teach me? Teach me how to write a Kikuyu song. But He's taught me. But it wasn't easy.
We are living in a lost and broken world, constantly bombarded by messages of hate and atrocities. But with God, we can overcome. Find hope and restoration on the go through life-changing shows on the Family Media app.
And then you will lose yourself and gain the world. And Jesus said, what good is it?
Get to stream Family TV and Family Radio 316 straight from your phone. Catch up on a show you missed or create video streaming playlists by saving and watching videos from our huge variety of shows at your own convenience. Download the Family Media app, available for all Android and iOS users on the Google Play Store and Apple Store respectively. Family Media, keeping Jesus on the airwaves.
It is in this new phase of Edith's life, as she continued doing covers and working on her music, that she got acquainted with her close friend and confidant, Hellen Muthoni.
I really can't remember the first meeting, but I remember the first call. We met through on the phone via a promoter who was trying to connect to her to me, because the promoter wanted her music to be on my platform that I was working in then. And I had seen her other music on social media with the PCA team, Muthoni. So I had loved her. I had loved her spirit. I just connected with her through social media. But now talking to her, I just told that promoter, you know what, just give me her number now. I know what I can do with her. And the promoter sent me her number. Up to now, I've never changed. I wrote her number and put a love heart at the end of it. You know, us girls, like, I loved her. I knew there was something about her that I really loved, and I couldn't put a finger on it. And we started talking. We would talk on the phone, we would chat, and honestly, I can't remember the first time we met. I don't know how that is. Looking back, I can't remember. But we talked like we had met each other we had known each other for such a long time. And even when we started talking about our journey through life, we were like twins. Our lives were so much alike, so weirdly. I keep telling her, you're my weird twin.
Edith's life took a turn for the worse, and as she fought through that season, a song was birthed, one that speaks a lot into what she was battling.
I found myself in a season in my life when I related to someone who was the complete opposite of the will of God. in my life. And as a result of, being in wrong companion, I got bruised and hurt in a way that words couldn't tell. It changed my life significantly. And if it had not been for the Lord, it would have taken me out. And so I was in that very, very dark season, And when I came out of it, I first wrote a song called Nigugudereruka. It didn't go too far, but it's a song that I released immediately after that season, because I was celebrating. Actually, that song is a celebratory song. It's like, it's gonna get brighter, because it had gotten brighter for me, especially with the end of that season. But after that, I went into a season where now I was thinking deeply about the things I had gone through. At first it was celebration, like, woo, that season is over. But then after that, you always tend to go back to a place now where you're quiet. There's no more celebration, there's no more music. And you kind of think about how that wave could have taken you out. And that's where Murango came from. It came from a deep place. Nemenyete okehinga Murango no kehingora ohingora gani wendo nidagisho kiagado ni Murango wahingorire Murango niechetereire na Murango wahingire.
Within the same period, Edith rekindled relations with a longtime friend, and with it came a promise of marriage, but first a proposal.
Before she got the proposal and before all these arrangements happening, she was, of course, a girly girl, and we would just talk girly stuff. And God, of course, God is the center of everything we do. And when she got proposed to, I remember I was so happy. I was really happy, and we were looking forward. We even shared the fundi who makes my clothes. I sent her to the same fundi, and the preparations were going on well. I even met the person. We were going on so well. But I remember in the middle of all that preparation, there's a pastor who is very well known in the country who called her and said, Edith, you're about to go to a season that will promote you into another dimension. And she told me, and we were like, nah, of course it's marriage. So we were praising God, we were happy, and we came for all the processes until almost the very end.
At the very end, the wedding was cancelled, and Edith went through a period of isolation that threatened to dim her shine.
I felt like I went through a season of grief, because the loss of anything would take you through a season of grief. And so there was denial. And there was the moment where now you kind of just release yourself and you're crying, you're beating yourself. There was the place of, inflicting pain on myself, that period of pain. There was also a period of, feeling ashamed about a lot of things that had happened in my life. But then the good thing about going through that season, when you're in a season of isolation, is that God allows you to go through that without the interference of external environments. So basically, I went through it all.
Hellen was persistent in the friendship despite efforts by Edith to shun her, and became part of a critical support system in that period.
She pushed me to the limit of opening up my life to her, to those levels. I needed somebody to cry with. I needed somebody to help me be angry. Sometimes you just require somebody to be angry for you. You just tell them, can you imagine? And this person is honestly angry, and that helps you. So Hellen was that for me. She would come to my house and we would spend nights, sometimes crying, so she helped me cry. Yeah. And we'd pray. We'd pray, we'd cry.
Through our crying, through our anger and outburst, it helped us move forward. And once we cried, we would release it. Now it's gone. We are angry. Today we are angry. And it really helped us in the process of healing.
As they went through this period of healing together, Edith started seeing things for what they truly were.
We went through the whole story with her, and there were so many red flags, and I'd never seen them. I was blind to them, probably because I was skewed. I'd wanted it to work, but while we were going through it with her, it was clear that what had happened, though painful, was God's best will for me and for my life. I think also just getting back on track in ministry. Just understanding that, your assignment is still not done. Because I remember at my lowest, I looked at my mom and I told her, "Mom, I'm done. I think my assignment on earth is done." And I told her, "Mom," I just told her those 4 words. I told her, "I want to die."
With such thoughts lingering in her mind, Edith had to come to a point of forgiveness, and this was not easy.
For God to, acknowledge that you've forgiven that person, you need to go to the root. You cannot forgive from the branches or the leaves. You've got to go to the root of the issue and actually forgive people and pray for these people, So I had to also go through a season of forgiving people. But guess what? One of the people I had to forgive was me. I had to go back and I had to forgive myself for things I had done to hurt myself and for decisions that I had made that had hurt me. And I had to, now during that period of healing was when I had to ask God, "Lord, now heal me. Now I'm ready to be healed." And this whole time I went through it alone. I didn't allow like a therapist to be in there, whatever, I don't know, psychologist or whatever. It was just me and God. Yeah, now I'm going through therapy, but therapy is coming much later after me and God have gone through that journey.
Throughout that period, Hellen had it rough as well, but through the Lord, she was able to find strength to be there for her friend.
I had to just lock my emotions, even whatever I'm going through, because even me on my personal life, I was also not well off. I was going through a hard punch, but somehow God gave me the grace that when I'm in that house and when I'm with her, it was never about me. It was always about her, with a reason and a purpose. And I believe God made it so, because she needed my full attention and she needed somebody to be in her shoe. So God gave me grace that it's now that you have spoken about it, that I am now realizing it was really never about me. God sent me there in that house as a vessel. And I keep telling people it's more like a woman when she gives birth to a child. No matter how thirsty she is, she cannot drink her own milk. She cannot. So that milk was not mine. So the strength was not mine. It was God. He was the source of the strength. Because even me in my personal life, I needed strengthening. But when I got into her house, God would just supply that strength.
A key indicator of what the Lord is doing in Edith's life came when that season of isolation ended and she did the song Nitasimama.
when I did Nitasimama and when I sang it prophetically. I think I'm one person who, being a minister that I am, even when I am sick to the point of death, nobody will know. I'm very confidential about my weaknesses, and I'm very loud about my achievements, because I prefer people knowing that God can do. And I like talking about my weaknesses when I've gone through them, after I am done, because I like them being a reflection of where God has taken me from. I never want to be the reason someone will question the goodness of God, the faithfulness of God. Like, if Edith is doing this, then is God really there? I never want to be in that place, And that's why I will keep smiling, even when I'm breaking inside. So when I did Nitasimama, it was prophetic. I was anything but standing. Nimesimama kwa rehema na neema yake, ile gharama ya uhai wangu Yesu amelipa yote. Mimi sitokufa, sitozimia, nitasimama kwa wema wake.
Now knowing where the song was birthed from and seeing how people accepted it and loved it, I could just see God through it. And also I saw her being affirmed by God that I told you, I am with you. I will never leave you and not forsake you. Even the songs that she has done even after that, they're still circulating and healing so many broken wounds, and so many testimonies are coming out of that particular song and so many others. It's God. It can only be God. And so it just teaches me as a person that if you don't have anything else and you just have God, you're good to go, my friend.
As Edith continues in her quest to stand again, her friend Hellen acknowledges that God is yet to do far greater and bigger things.
There are aspects of my life which I wouldn't necessarily say I'm still standing. And especially with regard to being able to be sociable again, relating to people, especially to that place of now leading to marriage and that kind of thing. I think what I've gone through, I still now need, and that's why I've told you, I found wisdom in going through therapy, because now I think it's that place of my heart where now that part of me needs to reconcile, and I think that one has a journey.
I'm praying for her above everything else, wisdom, because there's no doubt there's a calling over her life, and a big one, bigger than even maybe she can realize. So she needs wisdom, divine wisdom from God to walk this journey, because maybe she'll get to a place that I cannot answer her question. She has outgrown me, which I would totally love. And as of now, I can clearly say she's not the baby I used to feel like I want to protect. She's a grown woman in her own rights. And as she makes, because I know she'll even have international collabos, I'm speaking in prophetic now, I pray that God will always give her wisdom, because if she prospers and if she does well, it's a win for the kingdom, and that is why we are here.
As we come to the end of Edith's story, we reflect on what the Bible says in Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future.
I know there are people who are going through difficult pains, difficult times. As we speak to people, we're probably speaking to people who are going through what the tears I went through then, the heartache, the heartbreak, the discouragement that I went through then. And back then, I didn't know what God was doing. But I would encourage everybody to step back from their selves, from self-love, from self, from self, and to know that God has a good plan for you more than you can plan for you. You think you have a good plan for you, but He has the best plan for you.